Hi everyone, so today I want to talk about decks, or more divisions, as they will be potentially in WARNO. So a lot of people would be like me, you've only played Wargame, you've never played Steel Division 2, and that has a slightly different deck system. Okay, it's very different in some ways to how it works in Wargame, and then there are some similarities. So this is a Wargame deck. We go into it, we can choose from any units, from in this case the Blue Dragons, so South Korea and Japan. We can choose any of their units, go through, have a good look. Everything is available to us. That's what we're used to in Wargame Red Dragon, and it's the same for anyone else. We can go and look at the Armoury and see all the units, and we can go and make any deck and have access to any units depending on the settings we choose, to make a difference as to whether we get to see the prototype units, for example. But in general, we have access to nearly everything, unless we choose a specialized deck and then it's a little bit more limited, but it's all there. Divisions are slightly different. Divisions are predetermined sets of units that you can then choose from. And the way the decks or battle groups work in Steel Division 2 is slightly different. So let's switch games and have a look at that. Right, for those of you who've never played before, which will be probably a lot of you at this point, if you're still following the video, this is Steel Division 2. I've clicked on the Battlegroups menu and we can see Divisions, Battlegroups and Armoury. The first thing I want to show you is the Armoury. This is... hang on a moment, I'm just going to click some infantry so the tank isn't making a lot of noise. This is very similar to Wargame. So we have the ability to choose Allies at Axis, choose any of the nations. We can choose a particular grouping of units, so Recon, Infantry, Tank, Support, Anti-Tank, Anti-Artillery, Air. The groupings will be different in WARNO. They're going to be the same as Wargame Red Dragon, but that's not really important here. The point is just to demonstrate that this is very similar. You can see that there are some little things here which, if I select this, you notice I can click on some of these, and all this does is change how the unit looks. They're like skins for the units. Again, don't worry about that. I don't know if that's going to be in WARNO, but in essence, the most important thing to note is that, the Armoury is in a hangar. You can zoom in and out on the units. You can spin it around. You can have a good look. Very, very similar to Wargame. The only thing I will note is that infantry, you can't see how they come in because every single division uses different transport vehicles, or some will overlap, but they all have access to different ones, different amounts, etc, etc. So one team or one division might allow these guys to come in a tracked vehicle and one won't. It's a bit like your specialization decks in Wargame, with even more limitations. But let's go back and let's have a look at the Divisions tab. So these are your divisions. This is a bit like clicking to build a new deck in Wargame and then having a drop down to select your nation, and then selecting a specialization as well. But again, there are more limitations because there could be 3 mechanized decks. There's 2, for example, for the Russians, and they can have completely different units in. We'll take a look at that, in fact. But first, what I want to bring your attention to is we've got this tank corps selected up here, and you'll notice that there's this lovely little blurb, and this is basically historical details about that division, where they were positioned, what sort of units you can expect to be in the division. However, some of them are fictitious, some of them have been made by the dev team for game balance purposes and things like that. You can see we've got quite a lot of divisions here. Obviously, at the start, WARNO will not have that many. This game is much further in its life cycle, so there are a lot more available. However, let's click on this 3rd mechanized corps. If I select it, you'll notice that we go straight to the deck screen, the overview screen. Very, very similar to Wargame here. You get to see all of your units, once you've selected them at least, and also you can see how much they cost. You can see your activation points, 0 of 50 in the top corner. You can see the name, new battle group, let's do test 1. You can see what division you've selected there. You can see phases here. Now, I will quickly explain phases, but these do not appear to be in WARNO. WARNO does not have phases. Phases were a way to split up the battle in Steel Division 2. So Phase A lasts 10 minutes, Phase B lasts 10 minutes, and Phase C goes on forever. The idea being that you could select some units that you could bring in Phase A, and those would still be available in B and C, but then you could choose some that would be Phase B, and then others that would be Phase C only. The later phase you selected for that unit, the more availability they had. The idea being that you had small battles in A and B as you expanded across the map, and then you had your potentially big battles in C. Now, deployment type, again, is something that is related to phases, and I don't think we'll be seeing any of this in WARNO. So, deployment type just dictated how points were split up. So, every minute in Steel Division 2 you get points. In Phase A, for balance, you get 110 points a minute, 135 for Phase B, and 155 for Phase C. The idea being that you're spending more money once you get to Phase C because you're wanting to bring in more units. Perhaps you have a different viewpoint and you want to be really aggressive in the early game in Phase A, or Maverick and be really aggressive in Phase B. Juggernaut, not so aggressive in either of the first two phases and really smash through in C. Flatline, super balanced, or V for victory, aggressive, defensive, aggressive, etc, etc, etc. You get the gist. Now, none of that is going to be in WARNO as far as we're aware, so we can ignore the phase system completely. Let's have a look at units then. So if I click on the Recon tab, you can see that I have a sniper team, and you can choose how they come in. You don't get many transports to choose from. You can either use this drop down, or you can choose display all of them, and then you can click them and look at their stats. If their stats are short, then you can actually see both on the screen at once. Obviously these are free, non-armoured, non-exciting. In Steel Division 2, when you bring in a unit in a vehicle without any weapons on, the vehicle vanishes once it drops off the units. So you bring the units in, you unload them from the vehicle will vanish off the map. I don't think that will be the case in WARNO, but I can't say 100% for sure. I haven't gone and had a detailed look through all the dev comments at the moment, but I suspect you'll be keeping your vehicles because most of them will have a gun on, let's be honest. And also, they're trying to make it more like Wargame than Steel Division 2 in that respect, I think. Anyhow, you can see we've got other units to choose from here. There are indeed 8 in total. We can click down them, so you've got a little bike, you've got another infantry squad, you've got a little carrier, you've got, again, some infantry, more infantry, a little tank, and another little tank, T-34 specifically. One thing I will know, which I don't know is going to be in WARNO, is the veterancy system. I think WARNO will have a veterancy system that is much more similar to Wargame. In Steel Division 2, experience is gained both in-game and on this screen. That's the same in Wargame. You know, you can see your troops go up to elite and things like that, in multiplayer even. Here in Steel Division 2, you cannot select elite. You can select experience none, you can select 1 pip of experience, so trained, I guess, or you can select 2 pips, which would be, I don't know, veteran. And then there is a 3rd pip point, but that can only be gained in-game. So that can only be gained by experience on the field. Now, what you will notice, compared to Wargame, is that when I click nothing, all the unit stats are standard. If I click trained or 1 pip, can you see that I've now got little yellow or golden numbers appearing next to some of the stats? Accuracy, rate of fire. And then if I do 2 pips, again you can see accuracy and rate of fire go up again. Now this is a UGen game. Not all of these calculations are correct. And I'm being told that by people with a lot more experience in this game who've been playing it for years. But that's pretty standard from UGen. their games aren't very user-friendly in giving you the information you want all the time in terms of damage calculations and things like that. A good example of this in Steel Division 2 is if you look down here at the armor, front armor 75, top strong? So top doesn't have an armor value, it just has strong or weak. What does that even mean when you've got millimeters for everything else? It's bizarre, but that's new gen for you. Sometimes there are some slightly bizarre things. Anyhow, so let me just click another infantry unit so we don't have that tank noise in the background. We could build our deck or our battle group by adding all of these units. So we've got 8 recon, we've got loads of infantry to choose from, we've got only 4 little tanks, we've got various support units, we've got various anti-tank units, anti-air, etc, etc. Now, you'll also notice you get defense here. Now, I don't think this is something that I'll add to WARNO. Basically, these are defense positions or options for aiding to defend an area. So, barbed wire fences, a gun pit, trenches, and if you wait a second, they will actually go into the ground, bunkers, other types of bunkers with anti-tank or anti-armor, you know, and an anti-tank gun there. The list goes on. There are lots of defensive options in Steel Division 2. I don't think we'll be seeing those in Wargame. The real thing I wanted to show you was this is a mechanized division. Let's go back. I will note you can autofill here before I go back completely. Autofill the battle group. Apparently this isn't the most sensible thing to do because it doesn't always give you the most suitable units, but there you go. That's your battle group done. I'll save it because it's test 1. Now let's go back. So we were in the 3YGV Mackenzie Corpus. Okay, so Mechanized Corps. If I click on the 7Y Mechanized Corps and then go into it, you'll see that our layout is slightly different. So we can put more points in certain areas compared to the previous division. And then if I actually click on Recon, I only have access to 6 here, not 8. And you'll notice as I click through, availability is very different. You get access to completely different units. Some of them are the same, or very similar, but other things will be different. For example, you know, the choice of vehicles will be different as to what you can use to call infantry in. And that's one of the big differences between Wargame and Steel Division 2's divisions. In Wargame, you select your nation and you select your specialization, and you have access to everything that nation has to offer for that specialization. With divisions, you only have access to what either they historically had access to, or what the devs decide for game balance reasons is what you have access to. So for example, in WARNO, let's say you're choosing the Americans, you could have 2 separate tank divisions. So you've got a Sentag division, but one of them could come with Abrams, and maybe one of them comes with Leopards. The reason for that is, you know, maybe you've got some German troops in that particular division, whereas the other one is purely American troops. This is how the split could happen, and they have said that there will be other nations available in certain ways in different divisions. So perhaps you'll be playing as the West German forces and you'll get air support options from the Americans, or you're playing as the East Germans and you get air support options from the Russians, etc, etc. That's something that you're probably going to see in WARNO. But in essence, building a deck is very similar. You can completely ignore the deployment phases. That's not going to be in WARNO by the looks of it. Each unit in the game will have a value assigned to it as to how good it is. It will have a unit class. So for example, it could be A, B, C or D, I think. Maybe it'll only be A, B or C. The point being, that's how good it is compared to other units of that type. So A would be very good, B not so good, C bad, etc, etc. And that'll be designated by colours. And that's just to give newer players an idea of what is good and what is bad. But as we know from Wargame, good and bad units vary depending on who's controlling them. So expect there to be a bit of good choices and bad choices in terms of what is ranked there. But in essence, divisions are decks, or battle groups are decks made from divisions. And divisions are specializations from Wargame, but with more limitations. I know some people aren't going to like that, and I'm still not sure about the idea myself. However, that's what they're going with, and I suppose it means that they can limit a bit more how powerful certain decks are by putting in and removing units that are maybe making a particular Division 2 powerful, which is what they have done in Steel Division 2. They have chopped and changed some of the divisions. What I can say is that some divisions in Steel Division 2 are better than others. So there is going to be a flavour of the month. There is going to be a meta. You are never going to escape that. The same thing is going to happen in WARNO. It's happened in Wargame. There will be certain decks that outperform other decks, and that's just the way life is. It's the same in any game. There will always be one faction that outperforms other factions. It's why, for example, in the Age of Empires 4 tournaments, you can't play the same nation or civilization every time you play. You have to change it every game. It's to make it a bit more balanced, so you can't just play one that's the cheese side and win every time. Now what I can say is, I can fully see someone modding the game and making it so you can have a mechanized deck and choose any mechanized unit from the Soviets or from the Russians or from the East Germans. You know, people have modded divisions into Steel Division 2, people have done balance mods for Steel Division 2. It is more moddable, or easier to mod, is my understanding, than Wargame is. Watch this space. Even if the initial release doesn't have that, someone will probably add it. But that was just a brief video, which has probably turned into a lot longer than I planned, to explain what divisions are, because I know there's a lot of us that had never touched Steel Division 2, so I thought I would have a little look. But in summary, Steel Division 2, much like WARNO, has divisions, and those divisions are basically specialized decks with additional limitations on types and numbers of units available. Simple as that, really. Did I need a 20-minute video for all that? Probably not. But thanks for sticking around anyway. Please do, as always, like, share and subscribe, and stay tuned to the channel because I'm going to do a video soon looking at all of the additional smart orders and things like that that are available in Steel Division 2 and how some of those may translate into WARNO. So that's the other big change that we don't have in Wargame that will be coming to WARNO. Smart orders, artillery that auto fires, mortars that auto fire, things like that. So we'll be taking a look at those things. Thanks for watching again, and I'll see you all soon.